Alright, so right now we have all of these objects. Let me go into the select tool. If we select this thing, we can move it around, and remember that basically the last thing that you draw is going on the top. Think of it like a collage or something. The last shape that you made is on the top of the object, right? So since I made this guy last, this should show up on top of everything. Okay. If we want to change this order around, you're going to have to move this object towards the back. Please note that if you go to the palette, at the bottom there it says, right here it says layers. Right now we're working with layer 1, but please note that you can expand this layer, and each of the objects that you've drawn, the rectangle, the other path rectangle that we have, is appearing right onto this under the layer 1. Okay, so right now the one that I'm selected has this blue square right next to it. I can always just click on another one and it will select this other parts as well. So that's one way to select everything on this layer and such. But right now I have this path showing at the very bottom, which means that it is on the, it's going to be obscured by everything else on top. If I click and drag this object right back into the middle right there, now this guy is on top of this yellow one, and if I do that again on top, now this guy should be able to obscure everything else. So please note that everything in the layer, everything that you've drawn first is going to be at the bottom, everything that you've drawn last will be on the top, but you can still change all of this stuff. Okay. You can also make a new layer. Please, if you note the very bottom of the layer palette, you'll have a little icon of, and the very last you have a trash can, which means that if you want to get rid of this object, you can, since I have this one selected right now, if I delete it, it's going to go away. Control Z because I didn't want to really delete it. But right next to that trash is create new layer. So right now let's go back and create new layer, and please note that it says layer 2. I could always rename this layer if I want, just by clicking into space and say this is the rectangle, yellow rectangle or something. You can name it whatever you want. So the choice is yours, because sometimes when you keep going by the default layer name, you might get confused on what's what, right? So if you might want to get organized and change the stuff around. You can always take whatever is an existing layer, like this yellow rectangle, click and drag it into the new layer that I've created, and now that is its own thing. I should be able to, with that, click on this eyeball icon, which will turn it on or off. If I select this root area right here, it's going to turn on and off this object. I can always expand this and turn on and off individual object as well. Okay, so you could always manipulate this thing around so that it's showing in the correct order that you want. So I could take the layer 1, move it up, move it up on top. You got to be careful when you do that, because sometimes you'll drop it into another layer and then you have a difficult finding all those objects again. But anyway, the display order is just that.